for those of you who haven't met it, nice to meet you guys. I'm Ryan Richardson, and I am a candidate for Oakland City Attorney. So, and I guess maybe the most helpful thing to do is just give you a little bit about my personal background. I'm from Arizona originally. I grew up in a family of school teachers, public school teachers. And I say a family of public school teachers. My parents remarried when I was young and both married school teachers. So I really did grow up around a lot of educators. From there, I went to Howard University for my undergrad and had a great time in DC, and moved to LA for law school. And I ended up settling down there for a little bit. I was there for 13 years, 3 years of law school and 10 years after that. Met my wife there, opened up my own practice there, doing kind of helping people start small businesses, and also work representing employees in harassment, discrimination, wrongful termination, wage theft cases. My wife's she's from the Bay Area, born and raised, and when we had our son, we decided we want to move up here to be closer to, she has two moms, and they both live up here, so we wanted some grandmas, and we moved. And when we moved, I kind of had to think about whether I wanted to try to rebuild a law practice or not, and I decided I wanted to move kind of even more decisively into public service, so kind of figured, do I want to work in a nonprofit? Do I want to work for a public agency? And after I did a little research and thought about it, I decided I want to work for the city of Oakland. Applied for really an entry-level job in the Equal Employment Office, not practicing law, just doing investigations. And then was there for about a year, and an opportunity arose in the city attorney's office. That was about 11 years ago now, and I've been there ever since. I'm the chief assistant city attorney and have been for going on 3 years now. And yeah, that's me. I think that's 2 minutes.
Thank you so much. Forget who we asked. It was a me.
I don't know. I'll jump in.
Yes.
I'll just get it started instead of hesitating. Okay, first question. Please describe 2 impactful decisions made by the current city attorney that would be done differently in a Ryan Richardson-led city attorney's office. What would you have done differently, and what, if anything, did you do as a staff member to try and lead to a different decision or outcome?
Yeah, so it's a good, interesting question. So there aren't like specific turning points in time that come to mind. I think when I think about things that I would do differently, and I'll just preface it to say, these are conversations I've had with Barbara Parker, so I have a tremendous amount of respect for her and her legacy. But I did, when I decided I was going to run for office, we had a heart-to-heart, and I told her I'm going to talk about things that you and I have disagreed over the years and things that I would do differently. But to answer your question, it's not really a point in time. It's an approach to the work where I think we've seen things differently. So one is, I think, our connectivity to community stakeholders and people outside of City Hall has been lacking at times. And I think that those were muscles that, in my understanding, were exercised a lot more, and over the years kind of seemed to atrophy. So in that regard, I think, one of the things, and I'd say even within City Hall, there was, maybe sometimes an approach to our relationships with council members or the mayor's office that could have been more deliberate, and we could have built stronger bridges. And I think, as a staff member, my job was to kind of counsel her and try to encourage her to build those bridges. But also, as I got higher up in the office, I was able to do some of that myself. So, today I've been able to establish some of those relationships with the people that come to the council meetings or come to board and commission meetings, certainly with our council members, with our mayor's office and other staff. I think they feel a lot more availability from us. I think, another thing is kind of related to that, but somewhat different, is really being deliberate about making sure people understand, especially the policymakers, where our role ends and where theirs begins, and making sure people feel reassured that we may give our thoughts and opinions on the wisdom of a policy choice, but that we're not going to put our thumb on the scale if it's legal. That if this is if there are 5 council members that want to pass a piece of legislation, if it's legal, we're going to sign off and we're going to draft it and make it the best legislation we can. I can speak for the folks in the office, that's been the approach, but I think there hasn't always been a level of trust between the policymakers, the mayor's office, the council member, and our office, and our city attorney in particular, that is the approach. And that comes with, you have to build that trust. Yeah.
Thank you.
What are the primary reasons that the City of Oakland is yet to exit the negotiated settlement agreement? What could or should the city attorney's office have done differently to help us exit the NSA sooner? And how quickly can we expect to exit the NSA with you leading our legal strategy?
Yeah. Is it 2 minutes for each question, or?
You can
That's
go a
right.
little bit longer.
A little more.
For this one,
So-
it's a media
it's a big one.
one.
Yeah. So, I think I back up a little bit, and I think one thing I want people to understand about the negotiated settlement agreement is it is technically a court case. It's an ongoing court case, settlement agreements. It's being overseen in federal court. But where it stands is it's not a matter of the city attorney's office arguing differently or arguing harder. I think one thing folks forget is that for most of the life of the negotiated settlement agreement, it was overseen by Judge Stelton Henderson, who's a civil rights icon in his own right, and a very respected federal judge. And our current judge, Judge Orrick, is no slouch himself. He's also a very highly regarded federal judge. I think we want to be very careful, and I have to be somewhat measured in what I say, because when I say what I think the strategy should be, because I work in the city attorney's office, I could be revealing actual legal analysis that I might share with the council. So if I'm somewhat measured, that's why that is. I can't just say everything I think about the NSA, because it's an actual case that I'm the lawyer for. But in general, I think that we need to be careful with any approach that suggests the judge just doesn't get it. That's for any court case. That type of approach to a case can backfire, and backfire quickly and drastically. These are smart people who are paying attention. I think what needs to happen for the city and the department to get out of the NSA is we need to go for an extended period of time without an unforced error, without some of these things that are being done every couple of years. And I'm not speaking out of class, because we see them that are brought to light by typically the media or by something being leaked. But there have been issues with accountability and with the fervor of investigations and holding officers accountable that have been brought to light, and it's not a matter of masking those facts or somehow arguing our way around them. We need to actually show and prove, in my opinion.
Great.
So, and then I think the second part of your question is how can the city attorney's office help? And I think it's inconsistent with what I'm saying. The best way we can help is by helping the chief and the police department, the city administrator, our civilian oversight professionals, helping them do what I just said, which is to actually put together a nice long string of months and quarters where we've not had any issues, and where we can go into court and not have to, that there is nothing for the city attorney's office to have to try to explain or spin.
What are the biggest opportunities to improve the city attorney's office, and how will they serve the best interests of Oakland residents? What will you do to address those opportunities during your term? Why haven't you been able to address these issues during your time as a staff member in the office?
Good questions. So I think, as I think about it, it comes down to staffing quite a bit, right? So we don't have as many attorneys as we need. We're not right-sized in several regards. One is in terms of our defensive litigation. And I imagine we're going to talk about outside counsel costs at some point, but one of the reasons we spend as much as we do as a city on outside counsel costs, that work has to go somewhere. We are charter mandated to defend the city when the city gets sued. We get over 600 claims a year. 80% of those we resolve with no payments going out, but we can't stop people from suing the city if they really, really want to, and we have to defend them. and the work has to go somewhere. The way to reduce outside counsel costs is to bring more of those cases in-house. But we can't bring them in-house without more people. I can attest firsthand, we don't have a group of litigators in the office who are sitting on their hands or twiddling their thumbs. They are busy. So if we want to bring more of those cases in-house, we have to have more folks, but it is absolutely a good investment. It is less expensive to use in-house folks to do that work than to use outside counsel. And I think another reason, and it's the calculation is getting easier and easier each year. When we look at the studies around law firms and their hourly rates, they're far outpacing inflation, right? So I don't think we're using a lot more hours of outside counsel than we were, say, 15 years ago, but the rate we're paying per hour as a city has gone up dramatically. So that's one thing we need to do. And how do we get there? I think we've had some success over the years, and it's a matter of building that trust with the city council so they're comfortable making that investment, and building that trust with the community so that when the council does make that investment, they are reassured that yes, this is going to cost the city in the short term, but it'll pay dividends in the long run. I think we also need to right size our affirmative litigation unit. And by the way, on that point, we have had some success. The office was decimated after the 2001 tech crash, and when the city had to do budget cuts, it was decimated again in the Great Recession, and we've slowly convinced the council to build us back up, particularly in defensive litigation. So it's a matter of continuing to do that. Our affirmative litigation group, that's not charter mandated work. Those are the folks that go out and can file lawsuits on behalf of the city. But that's also a good investment for the city because it pays for itself. That group has brought in $47 million in the last 6 years against Monsanto for putting forever chemicals in local waterways, against lead paint manufacturers, against opioid manufacturers. They more than pay for themselves, and I know firsthand they still have cases that they can't take. In cases where the fees and fines that they would get and the attorney's fees that they could collect would pay for the salaries and benefits and then some. So we need to right size that. That is also something we've had some success in. So when they did the biennial budget, we had 6 people in that unit and 3 temps. And I was able to convince the council to make those 3 temps permanent. We were able to show them that for the first 2 years, it was absolutely going to be paid out of monies that team had already collected that were the city wouldn't have had, and so it wasn't going to hit the general fund at all for the first 2 years. And then what we'll be able to show is that now going forward, again, they're bringing in more money than they're costing the city. I think that gives us a kind of a proof of concept and a roadmap to continue doing that. I don't know what the exact right size is, but I know we're not there yet. And so in the next biennial budget, that's another thing I want to talk to the council members about, is adding some more folks to that group so that we can take on even more cases. It's a win-win. The cases they take on make the streets cleaner or safer or both, and they don't cost the taxpayers anything. And if we do it right, they actually add to our coffers.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We have 10 minutes for follow-up questions, Brian.
Anybody?
No one's going first.
Looks like me online had a question.
Typar or Chris, do you guys have any follow-ups?
Nothing?
I'll go.
No?
Sure.
I guess actually, real quick, I do, this is Chris. You see a lot of, you kind of address a little bit where you do see a lot of external lawsuits, and they seem to be, we don't know the details. They are, settled. They seem like they're large amounts. But are you saying that if you use inside counsel, you'd be able to manage those better rather than using external counsel? Or what is really the driver that drives some of the large settlements that we see?
That's a good question. So yeah, I think there's 2 ways we want to, as a city, reduce the cost of defending the city. One is just reducing the cost of the attorneys. So that's what I was talking about when I'm saying just hour for hour. If we're spending the same number of hours litigating, it's cheaper, more efficient, to do it in-house than it is to use outside counsel. Their hourly rates are high, but also when you use outside counsel, they still have to be it still takes a significant amount of in-house time to manage that case. You can't just hand it off to them because they don't know when they need a declaration from somebody, or they need a policy, or they need to find something. They call our office, and we have to weigh in and help them. So that's outside counsel costs. It's related to risk management and liability, but it's somewhat separate. But another way we can reduce the city's overall cost of defense and risk management is to have fewer lawsuits, or fewer lawsuits with high payouts, is I think maybe kind of what you're asking about. And I think it was your guys' questionnaire actually that got me kind of curious about this question, and I did some digging. And what I found was when I averaged the payouts that we've had for the last 5 years, it's an average of about $12 million a year in settlements and judgments. And there was one really big case that the ghost ship case that takes that average really up high. Without that case, it was just under $8 million a year. And so then I said, well, I wonder what it was 15 years ago. And when I took a 5-year average 15 years ago and adjusted for inflation, it was just under $8 million that the city was paying out in lawsuits. So it's not clear to me that we're paying out a whole lot more than we ever have been, but that's not to say we can't manage it better. I think one of the things that what we need to do, it's not as simple as, well, we'll just win more cases. We'll just fight them harder, spend more money on them, and we'll just win more. It's not as simple as that. When we settle these big cases, it's not the city attorney's office deciding to settle. We go in closed session, we advise the council. The two biggest payouts we've had in decades were Ghost Ship and Terry Baker, a guy on a motorcycle that was hit by an officer who ran a red light. We paid him $12 million because he had severe brain damage that was going to impact the rest of his life. But these are things that the council unanimously voted to settle. Every case that we settle is because the council voted to settle it. So doesn't happen in a vacuum is one thing. The gold standard for risk management is to prevent the lawsuits in the first place. It's to take some of that $8 million that we're spending on settlements and invest it deliberately and in data-driven ways to prevent. So if we take $2 million of that dollars and invest it in the right potholes, for example, we may avoid $3 or $4 million in payouts. And we know now from some of the reporting that's been done by a number of news sources, it's our infrastructure that it's our most costly liability now. It used to be employees, officers a lot, but also other city employees who are driving and stuff like that. Now it's potholes. It's trip and fall, it's sidewalks, it's those types of things. I think the city is doing what it can to fix those things and address them in thoughtful ways, but I think we could do more. Like I said, we have over 600 claims a year, dozens and dozens of lawsuits. We have a database that allows us to track certain things about those cases and claims, but it's for case management. It's not built for us to actually be collecting data about risk and to be like mining that data to help DOT, Public Works, OPD figure out where should we be prioritizing potholes? Which supervisors are most likely to cause us to get sued because they said the wrong thing to an employee, and what kind of training is going to be most effective? We're not collecting that kind of data. I think that's something we need to do.
Thank you.
Yep.
Can I just follow up to that? What of those ideas is under the control of the city attorney's office?
Well, so I think the idea everything I'm talking about is going to require the council to invest. Investing in the type of database that I'm talking about, I think would be a minimal, not a very big investment in the grand scheme of the city. But yeah, it would require an investment. The idea of working with the administration, the DOT director, Public Works director, HR director, to sit down and think about the type of data we want to collect. I couldn't make those folks do it, but I think they would, right? And then using that data to inform capital improvement, like the priorities of our capital improvement projects and those types of things. Again, I couldn't, as city attorney, just decree that this is how we're going to go about things, but I can present we could present the data to this administration, to the council for their consideration, and it couldn't hurt. So it's not yet. It's all cooperative. I mean, everything in the city attorney's office, we don't direct anybody. We only ever advise, and so it's critical that people trust us and want to work with us, because we can't make people do anything. So that it's going back to what I was saying earlier about the relationships. It's critical. It's critical because if people don't trust you or don't want to come to you or don't want to work with you, you can never be an effective lawyer.
I have a couple
3 more
questions
minutes.
at a time.
Yeah.
One question, can you speak to the treating the city staff as a client, one from an advisory standpoint, and how time standpoint that is balanced with actually as a partner developing solutions?
Yeah.
Because I'll say, and this is just coming from my personal experience as a council member, I would say I was disappointed or a little bit frustrated that we weren't supported in being, in solving the problem. Like, this is where we want to get to, well, what we want to do. All right, here are the ways we can get there. Instead, it was more like, well, no, we can't get there that way, and then closed door. Can you speak to actually helping to solve the problems versus simply providing a legal?
I mean, I think yeah, and
answer?
I think you said it. Like that should be the approach. And I'm thinking back to when you were on the council, I think we did have some folks that was not their approach to the work. There's a few people I can think of in particular. I won't name names, but like that was not their approach to the work, especially on the advice side. But that's what we're supposed to be doing as an office, right? And that's so I've taken over the advisory side going in 3 years ago. That is what I expect folks to do. That is what I think we are doing. I think if you look at the folks that have endorsed me, that have been on the council or used to be on the council in the mayor's office or used to be in the mayor's office, it's because that's been their experience with me, and that's what I expect from the folks that I work with. But it is not to oversimplify it, but it's just that, like, we're supposed to be there as thought partners, sounding boards, problem solvers, and at the end of the day, a legal advisor and forming legality. But before you even get to that point, it's like understanding what the client's goal is. Even if they didn't articulate the right path there or a legal path there, I understand where you're trying to get to. We can't go over this hill, we're gonna have to tunnel through it, we have to go around it, but I'm gonna help you figure out how to get there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is there another question? So I have one more.
Go ahead.
Neighborhood Law Corps.
Yeah.
What are the opportunities or challenges relative to the program, or I guess, how would you improve the program to better serve the community?
So, good question. So so you guys all know what Neighborhood Law Corps is?
No.
So it's a team of, used to be 5 attorneys, and I'll talk about that in a second, who can go out and they're each assigned to a different part of Oakland, so it's kind of geographic, so that they get to know some of the neighborhood councils and that kind of thing and work with them, and police area captains and that and the like. And they can pursue kind of more, like, whereas describing before the bigger affirmative litigation cases we take on, they're more class actions in nature. The Neighborhood Law Corps will take on more neighborhood level quality of life cases. So if there is one neighbor on the block who is causing blight, whose building is never up to code, whose alarm keeps going off, who doesn't cut their grass and is causing a fire hazard, those types of things, they can actually go out and try to help abate those issues. It's among the most important work that we do because it improves quality of life for some of our neighborhoods, but it's also, like, for a lot of people in Oakland, that's their only experience of the office, and it means a lot to them, and to see their tax dollars at work in that kind of way. In this in this mid-cycle budget, one of our neighborhood law court positions was frozen. So that's a 20% reduction in that core, which, you know, we didn't really have a choice, but that's what it is. I want to get that back. They're also, they're underpaid. They make $80,000 a year, which is, that's not nothing, but it's to attract and retain really capable attorneys. It's not competitive. They come in for 3-year cycles, and what we found too is that's our entry-level position into the office. You don't have to have very much experience at all to enter into that position, but when we have somebody really great that enters in there, we can find a spot for them. We're able to keep them. Some of the best attorneys we have in the office who've been there for 10, 11 years started out in the neighborhood law court. So it's critical in any number of ways to the work that we do. It's another one where I also think we could stand to have a few more than we've traditionally had, because I've never heard somebody, what I hear when I talk to folks is not that they don't like working with their neighborhood law court attorney, but that they don't have enough of their time or attention, that they're spread too thin, right? Like I hear that, oh, I love working with so-and-so, they're great, but like we only see them once every few months, or our case feels like it's going slowly, and they're right, because those folks have a big caseload, bigger than they can handle. So yeah, it's when I talk about expanding affirmative litigation, I'm including that group, that 9 that I'm talking about. They're 5 of that 9.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I have one last question, then we have to wrap. So until you had another candidate jump into the race, you were, you know, sort of a shoo-in to win. I'm sure that you've heard some of the criticisms from other candidates or just, you know, around. What are ones that you've heard, and how would you respond to them?
Criticisms
of your candidacy for this role?
I don't know. I guess it would be more helpful if I knew what criticisms we're talking about, because I'm not going to criticize myself, I suppose. But, I don't know. I think, you know, I think you know, I think if we get our message out, I have a lot of faith in Oakland voters. You know, I'm usually, by nature, I'm a pretty modest person. I'm not I was a class president in high school, and I have my sights set on politics forever. This is something that I've had a lot of privileges and a lot of blessings put in front of me to be where I am, and so then I am the best person for the job, right? I'm not the perfect person for the job, but I've been doing this work for 11 years. When I go around and have asked the people who know my work the best if they think I should run for this office, they've unanimously said yes. There's 43 attorneys in the office. They're all in the union, so they're allowed to vote. They took the vote. It was anonymous, so I never got to know what they voted. There was one person who was undecided, and everybody else voted to endorse me. So, you know, bragging about myself is something I'm still getting used to, but it's something that I have to do. But I don't have a lot of reservations about my campaign, or really kind of our campaign, the campaign of myself and the team in the office and the folks in City Hall that are supporting me. It's the right thing to do. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right.